Rios Montt's lawyer, Francisco Palomo, himself fought in the Civil War as an airman. He says that only moving on from what happened 30 years ago can bring peace.
El general Ríos, al igual que todos los militares y al igual que todos los guerrilleros, quedaron amnistiados por los hechos de la guerra y por lo tanto no debía haber juicio contra nadie. Y lo que pasó es que en esa época
Palomo says that Rios Montt didn't control battlefield operations and is being used as a scapegoat for a period in which human rights abuses were committed by both the army and guerrillas.
Y nosotros también sostenemos que en Guatemala no hubo genocidio. Aquí lo que hubo fue una guerra. Naturalmente hubo abusos y hubo horrores de la guerra, como todas las guerras. No hay guerras sin muertos. Por supuesto, murieron muchos indígenas, pero muchos indígenas, la tropa del ejército también era indígena.
No guerrilla fighters have been tried for war crimes, something that many supporting the army and their actions during the Civil War believe is unjust. On the other hand, a 1999 UN-backed commission reported that government security forces were behind over 90% of all human rights abuses committed during the Civil War. Even so, many here thought this trial would never take place. Guatemala's justice system has long been perceived as corrupt, simply protecting the rich and powerful. Juana Brito hopes that the trial can help change this. She fears that if Guatemala doesn't confront its past, her grandchildren could suffer in the same way she did 30 years ago. She says that for her, this trial is an opportunity not only for justice, but for an escape from the fear and pain that the past brings.
John Holman recently returned from Guatemala. He joins us now from his home base in Mexico City. Welcome, John, and thank you for your report. Where do the trial proceedings currently stand?
Well, it's been a bit of a bombshell in that the trial has been suspended. And the reason given for that is that the original judge who was taking on this case, she was taken off the case in 2011, and the judge was appointed that has now taken it to trial. But now, probably about 2 or 3 days before the trial is due to finish, that original judge has been reappointed somehow to the case, and that's meant that the Constitutional Court in Guatemala is trying to work out whether the trial can continue with the new judge, this original judge who's now retaken on the case, in place, or whether the whole thing needs to be repeated again.
What have been some of the highlights in this genocide trial?
Well, probably one of the parts of the trial that's attracted the most attention is when a former soldier testified that Guatemala's current president, Otto Pérez Molina, was involved in the killings that took place in the Ixil region. So there's a suspicion, many people are saying, both inside and outside of Guatemala, that political reasons and not strictly legal or judicial reasons may have been the cause of the suspension of this trial. And obviously there's a lot of powerful people in Guatemala that will have been watching this trial nervously, thinking that if a former president can be tried for genocide, what will happen next?
John, can you describe the reactions of Rios Montt and the family members inside the courtroom?
So Rios Montt, since this trial has begun, he's been largely silent. He's been keeping his own counsel. Family members for both him and his co-defendant, his ex-chief of staff, have been a bit more vocal. We had the chance to speak to the wife of his co-defendant, and she echoed the thoughts of many people who support Rios Montt and who support the actions of the Guatemalan army during the Civil War, saying that what's happening here, this trial, is some sort of conspiracy. There's also obviously a lot of Ixil people that have come to see the trial. They've traveled 6 hours from the Ixil region in the north of Guatemala, many of them speaking no Spanish, and those of them that have testified in the trial have said things that have been quite extraordinarily painful. One man testified that in his village, people's hearts were literally taken out by the army and burnt.
Why would the government prosecute the indigenous population for the actions of the guerrillas?
Well, what's been happening, basically what happened during Rios Montt's time in charge during the Guatemalan Civil War, is that there was basically a two-pronged strategy from the government, and part of that was control. Lots of villages were burnt in indigenous regions, and the indigenous population was moved into what they called model villages, which were smaller, more compact, where the armed forces could keep an eye on them, because many people in the indigenous population had strong links to the guerrillas at that time. Another aspect of the control was giving those villagers rifles, giving them guns, and herding them into self-defense patrols. And the aim of those was to go out and hunt guerrillas.
If the trial is dismissed, what's next for Rios Montt?
Well, it's very unlikely that this trial will be outrightly dismissed. It seems that the options at the table are that it will be resumed or that it will be repeated. But one thing is for certain, that Rios Montt is 86 years old now. Who knows how long his health is going to hold up.
John Holman, thank you for your insight on this story.